This is Talk, the home of common sense. Thank you very much indeed for joining me. Just if you're tuning in right now, incredible breaking news from Liverpool Crown Court in the last 15 minutes or 20 minutes or so. Axel Rudakubana has pleaded guilty on the very first day of his trial to all charges in relation to the Southport attacks. Joining us in the studio right now is news reporter Alex Dibble. Alex, thank you for joining us. There was an expectation, he hadn't pleaded guilty himself from previous hearings, that there would be a full trial, 2, 3, 4 weeks long, starting today. Quite a surprise to everyone that he has pleaded guilty. Tell us what he's pleaded guilty to.
He was charged with 16 offences, 3 of murder relating to the 3 girls who died as a result of his deadly attack in July last year. They were, just to remind everybody of their names, Silva Aguiar, Elsie Dot Stancombe and Bebe King, who were 9, 7 and 6 years old. They were part of the group who were at this Taylor Swift-themed dance class in Southport in July last year, just at the start of the summer holidays. He was charged with their 3 murders. He was also charged with the attempted murder of 8 other children at that class and the attempted murder of 2 adults. The dance instructor, who was a woman called Leanne Lucas, and a businessman by the name of John Hayes. Later on, during searches of his home in Lancashire, in Banks, which is not far from Southport at all, a biological toxin, ricin, was discovered, as well as an Al-Qaeda manual that you mentioned a few moments ago before the break, which was entitled Military Studies in the Jihad Against the Tyrants, the Al-Qaeda Training Manual.
Yeah, it does exactly what it says on the tin.
He was charged with offences for both of those, and with a final one of possessing a knife on the day of the attack. So 16 offences. He has pled guilty to all of them.
Every single one of them. Now, there is one reporting restriction that still remains on this trial, and that is the identity of the 8 girls who were stabbed, but thankfully lived through that. Obviously, we need to respect that, just for the sake of the families and these children's safety, I would have thought as well. This case, I mean, this not only was unbelievably awful and traumatic for those involved and for the families, but also for the people of Southport. We saw demonstrations on the day. We then saw a whole string of riots across the country in Southport and elsewhere. We then saw hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of arrests. People right now, hundreds of people, are behind bars as a result of things they did on those following days, but also things they wrote, whether it was on X, on Twitter, or on Facebook or elsewhere. This has absolutely really stolen a nation's hearts, this case. We were told, weren't we not, there was rumours going around on the day that it was an illegal migrant who had come in and a false name was given. That was quickly debunked. However, people went out on the streets. We then did get this statement from the police that, well, that this was a Cardiff-born young man. Now, the fact that he was born in Cardiff, but he was of immigrant parents from Rwanda. I think a lot of people felt they'd been misled. And then we had the statement from the Prime Minister insisting this is not a terror-related, there are no terrorism charges related to this terror investigation. We then discover months later, that ricin and the Al-Qaeda manual were involved. There are still big questions to be answered about that by the police, by the Home Office and by the government and by the Prime Minister himself.
There are big questions. I think it's been a very interesting case because, as you mentioned, right from the start, information was being released to the public which wouldn't ordinarily be released, such as the birthplace of the prime suspect. Yeah. That's not normally said. His identity also was released, and that doesn't normally happen, also because he was 17 at the time of the offence, so normally he would be anonymous.
But but then a week later he was going to be 18.
He was.
Yeah.
But the authorities have always been aware, and whether you believe they've done the right thing or not throughout, but they've always been very aware of the sensitivities of this and how this case sparked the riots, and they had to deal with that separately. Throughout, the police never linked the possession of the Al-Qaeda manual and the toxin to the stabbing that he carried out. So they were always kept separate. Now, many people would say, surely not.
Anyone with half a brain.
But that's always legally how those two things have been divided. But you're right in the sense that there were very serious questions about who knew what time was the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary made aware that these things had been found at his home, and how long did it take after that point for that information to be made public?
But that's the thing, it was made public so much later on. They searched his home on the day that he was arrested. The idea that they hadn't discovered this stuff until many months later is frankly for the birds. And that is where we've got people quite rightly very, very suspicious about what information has been withheld from them. What do you make of the timing of the trial? Many people, there are a lot of conspiracy theorists on social media. I've been trying to advise people, for the love of God, let the judicial process go through. We've got a lot of problems, I think, with two-tier justice. Let the jury do their job if there was a proper trial. And people are innocent until proven guilty. I think we need to protect that. Now, or plead guilty, as in this case. The timing of the trial today, on the day of Donald Trump's inauguration, all focus on Donald Trump's inauguration in the newspaper. A lot of people saying the timing was very suspicious and they were trying to sort of, you know, have our attention elsewhere rather than focusing on this trial. Do you think there's anything in that?
Probably not for me to pass comment on that, but the timing of the trial was set by the trial judge, and that took place as a result of the legal proceedings. He was, of course, charged months ago. He entered, although he had pleas entered on his behalf a week before Christmas, and at that point a trial date was set. Yep. As you said, the trial was expected to last 3, 4, maybe even up to 6 weeks. So I think if you're someone who believes that there is suspicion in the timing, you have to reconcile with the fact that today was just jury selection. We weren't going to have anything. We weren't going to have anything until tomorrow, maybe the next day. And at that point, it would have made headline news, and the inauguration would have been a couple of days before. Yeah, absolutely. Very fair point. Alex Dibble, thank you very much, to Deputy Head of News here. Just a quick word from Sam Armstrong. We will come back to this after 12.
How many things out of the ordinary have to happen in a process before you get suspicious? Here, I'll just come out and say it. I don't think we were told the truth entirely at the time. Yep. I'm still concerned that we've not heard the truth now. I think the suggestion that there's no link between the terror and the murder is bizarre. I think there is stuff we're not being told.